Hey, Mike and Dustin. Listen, I just wanted to give you some advice. Listen to Brian, okay? He knows what he's talking about. And listen to me, because I'm the screamer around here. But anyway, I just want to tell you, hey, don't go out there. Just don't go out there. I love you.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Happy extremely late birthday, Mike, and welcome back to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. Really appreciate all support. Before we jump into tonight's birthday bonus, I just want to shout out our website, don'tgoouthere.com. We got all of our episodes and interviews, our store, our blog, all of our social media links, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Like us, follow, subscribe us, all that good stuff. We got a lot of interaction on our announcement post for this birthday bonus. I'm glad Mike picked it. It's got a lot of fan traction. A lot of fans like this show. And speaking of Mike's birthday bonus, Brother Mike, why don't you announce what you picked and why you chose it?
Yeah, man. So when I was kind of bouncing around ideas I wanted to do for my birthday pick, it takes me it's the second year in a row we've done my birthday pick like 6 months after my actual birthday. Last year was Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which everybody dreaded, but ended up being one of my favorite episodes we've ever done, by the way. I think it's a great episode if you go back and listen. The movie's not very good.
Great movie.
The episode that we created off of that film, I think, is really, really good. So this won't be that. This will be fun, a lot of fun for me and Dustin. And then I'm glad that you two agreed to go along the ride with us. So I picked, and then there was Shawn. It's an episode of Boy Meets World, season 5, episode 17 or 7, one of those. I don't know. But
17.
I believe, yeah. So there you go, episode 17. So Boy Meets World is one of my favorite shows of all time. It's one of, if you don't count like serious shows like The Wire, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, it's my favorite show of all time that isn't like one of those dramas. So many memorable moments. I've seen every episode of this show probably 30 times over and over and over again on reruns when I was a kid. Me and my sister watched it all the time. And I've always thought about picking this, but I hated to pick it on a week where it's my movie pick. It's too short. It's like 21 minutes without the commercials. And it just wouldn't have been up to snuff compared to what we've done so far on this show. But for a birthday pick, a bonus, I couldn't think of a better way to kind of weasel it in there. It's like, hey, it's my pick. You have to do what I say. And so here we are. Also, don't forget, me and Dustin used to have a show called Boy Meets Pod that the actual characters from that show stole the idea from us.
Also, it's funny that you just said weasel it in there because, Weasel, who's called Weasel?
Huh?
Shawn's little brother. Shawn's little sister.
Oh, yeah,
Weasel.
Jesus Christ. Man, that's a deep cut right there, brother. That is a deep cut. So I picked this episode because it revolves around horror themes and tropes. It's basically a 21-minute slasher film. It's fun. I think there's a lot of funny moments, a lot of subtle and not so subtle nods to old horror movies. Obviously, this came around the time of Scream. I know what you did last summer. So you get Jennifer Love Hewitt in here, like a few months fresh off of that role. So she's, her cameo makes it kind of fun. The slasher is dressed like Scream minus the skeleton mask, which I think is fun. It's like Skeletor and Ghostface had sex. That's just what the outfit looks like to me. There's even do you like scary movies? There's so many little nods to horror films in here. And look, if you don't know the backstory, quickly, Topanga, Shawn, and Corey are the 3 best friends that anyone could have, except for Corey and Topanga are in a relationship together that goes back years and years and years to the Sandbox when they were little kids. And Shawn and Corey are best friends, and Eric and Jack are Corey's brother and Shawn's brother. So those are basically our main. And Mr. Feeney, I'm pretty sure if you've never seen this show, you at least know who Mr. Feeney is. The all-wise one, the maestro, the man, the legend, Mr. Feeney. Great character. I I think it's fun. I picked it because I can't think of any other time we would ever cover this, and I felt like picking 2 non-horror things in a week on our horror podcast. So let's do it.
I'll go next real quick. Just being honest, I never watched Boy Meets World growing up. It just wasn't the show I was into. I was
shocked.
What'd you say, Dustin?
I am shocked.
Man, I was a half Asian kid. Man, I was watching Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z and Yu-Gi-Oh. So,
oh man, there's an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh we could do, but I'll save it for another time.
But I'll just say, real quick, I enjoyed the episode. I mean, I don't know the characters, the backstory. I, told Mike all this, so I told him I really don't know how to rate this because I don't know up to 5 seasons worth of story.
Right.
I'm just watching 20 something minutes, but I'll just say I think it's a fun little meta episode of Boy Meets World. It's got, like you said, the Jennifer Love Hewitt cameo. Really like that. The Scream nods, a bunch of nods to other horror movies. I'll just say I think it's fun. I think it was fun.
And we know if Nico loves anything, it's meta.
Hey, he didn't hate on this one, so I'll take it. Also, the janitor's name is Freddie for a reason, so that's another little nod there.
Brian, you want to go ahead and go next for your thoughts?
Yeah, so I wasn't as big of a Boy Meets World fan as Dustin and Mike, but I did love and I did watch the show. And like Tiffany Amber Thiessen, I had a huge crush on Daniel Fishel, like pretty much every guy, and I'm sure some girls did. She's 2 years older than me, by the way, so it was never weird. So I've never actually sat down and watched all of the episodes in sequential order, but I felt like over the years I'd seen so many reruns, and even when they were on air to start out with, that I'd actually seen them all, but I was wrong. I'd never seen this one. And you know what? This is a good standalone episode, even if you weren't a Boy Meets World fan, I think. I feel like Jeff McCracken and writer Jeff Minnell did a good job of hitting somewhere in between Scary Movie and like an actual horror movie where it wasn't quite a parody, but it wasn't quite a horror film either. And, yet it's still, and this is the biggest thing, like it kept the heart of Boy Meets World.
Absolutely.
And, that's my best way to describe it, but I loved it. And it is now my favorite episode of the series. By the way, sidebar, if you don't have Disney Plus, watch this on Amazon or YouTube, because don't watch this on Vudu. It's fucked up. It's fine for like the first 30 seconds, and then it starts over with the video, but the audio is all messed up. It's a mess. Just take my advice on that one.
Okay. Why did you watch it on those apps? Why didn't you watch it on Disney Plus? You have Disney Plus?
I did not have Disney Plus on my phone, and I couldn't log into it.
Hey, so my Disney Plus wasn't working, so I may have used a number sequence to watch this episode.
What the fuck is going on Frank Gore's internet right now? All right.
We're on Shawn Hunter's internet, by God. Anyway.
Yeah, Mike, you said it. I love this show just as much as you. Well, maybe not just as much. I mean, you've watched it a lot more than I have, it sounds like. But I do love this show. We love this show. We've had a short-lived podcast talking about this show. This is a great episode. I hadn't watched it in probably a year and a half or so. This episode, went back and watched it. I was like, man, this is such a great episode. If this is all you see from the show, it's perfect, because like it captures the humor and the dynamic between the characters. The only thing you don't get is, Amy and Alan's. You don't get to meet the parents, but that's okay, because everyone else is great in this episode. Great cameo with Jennifer Love Hewitt. I love it. So I'm excited that you picked this one.
If you're looking for another horror connection, producer of this show and the show Dinosaurs, which is funny, but the next episode we're going to review. If you're looking for a horror connection, Michael Jacobs, the producer of this show, also helped write and produce Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. So this is much better than that.
Alrighty, guys. Any more opening thoughts before you just jump right into it?
Topanga. Okay, let's go.
This episode was a very dialogue heavy, but it was fun. I'm glad you picked it, Mike, and I know you're excited. We're reviewing this. It's one of your favorite shows and favorite episode, so I'm excited we get to do this for you, brother. And I hope my scene by scene did it justice. So let's kick it off. Episode kicks off with a quick theme song, and now we see Shawn walk into class. He asks, why is Corey sitting in his seat? He says he and his wife broke up, so he needs a buffer. He says the breakup is causing ramifications in his life now. Mr. Feeney says, nice word, Jughead. Shawn says he's only sitting here. He's not actually in the middle of them. Kenny asks Topanga to borrow the big pencil, and Shawn snaps, saying, I know what that means, and no one borrows more pencils than me. Angela says he was just asking to borrow a pencil, and Shawn says, if he asks again, I'm going to stab him through the chest. Mr. Feeney tells him to shut up. Shawn stands up, telling Mr. Feeney, you remember what it was like to be stabbed in the back? And Topanga says, I didn't do that. He stabbed me in the back. Corey says, I'd stab myself before I stabbed you. Feeney tells him this class will not be more interested in love relationships over whatever the hell I'm teaching. Feeney sends Corey and Topanga to new seats. He now asks Shawn a question and says, one more interruption, all you nuts are going into detention. The janitor walks in creepily, and Feeney says, that's it. Corey mocks Mr. Feeney, and he says, this is detention. No talking, no moving, or fraternizing for the next hour and a half. Don't think you're not being watched just because I'm not here. Kenny says, I just wanted a pencil. Shawn tries to leave to go to his locker, but the door's locked. Corey says that's against the Geneva Detention Convention. The janitor gives him a creepy stare, and they ask if he's got the key. He flashes a big set of keys, and he walks away. Angela grabs Shawn's arm, and he says he likes what's going on. Suddenly, the map in front of the board rolls up, and it says, no one gets out alive in blood red. I don't like it as much, Shawn says. It's Feeney, Shawn says. It's fake, he says. Corey says he's teaching us to pay attention or die. Shawn says this makes sense if you've seen as many horror films as me. The locked door, the bloody writing, the creepy janitor, and our soon-to-be first victim as he points at Kenny. Why me? Corey says it certainly won't be any of us. Angela asks, what's that? And Shawn says, that's our beating heart. The door swings open and two guys walk in with a basketball. He says the water pressure was great, but there was blood in all the showers. Shawn says this is all the work of a diabolical master, Feeney. Corey says we're too young to be scared of detention, so the school was a house of terrors. Someone turns the lights off, and Angela screams as we see Kenny stabbed through the head with a pencil, dead against the wall. Oh my gosh, they killed Kenny as the kids run into the hallway. The lights are flickering, and a song is playing saying, Welcome to John Adams High, where you're going to die. Topanga says this cannot be Mr. Feeney. Topanga says she doesn't care who's behind it. She's scared and wants out. They run down the halls looking for keys. Why won't you believe me? It's so predictable. First, there will be some strange shrouded figure creeping behind us. None of us will see, as one does that. Lights will flicker, then Feeney will pop and reveal his master plan to us. We see Feeney now, and Corey compliments his efforts. Shawn says he knew it all along. What was the big lesson you were trying to teach us? And taps his shoulders. Feeney falls to the floor with scissors stabbed into his back. I was wrong. Feeney dead, Topanga says. Angela asks if any one of us are safe. Shawn says virgins, they never die. The two jocks say they're dead, and Shawn says I'm as close as I can be without being dead. Shawn says let's calmly recap. Angela says we should split up, and Shawn says immediately that's wrong. Corey says the janitor is the killer. That's the end of the janitor, Shawn says. Shawn now says you were wrong to break up with Corey. None of this happened when you were together. More squeaking as Angela yells he's coming for us. They run out and see a trash can. Angela is complimented on her screaming. They find the janitor dead and 15 retainers. They don't understand. The janitor was the last person here. Shawn says the janitor is the last obvious suspect. Corey now says one of the killers is one of us. Corey and Shawn ask Topanga if we upset you enough to kill. Corey says one of us is a crazy, psychopathic murderer. The question is, which one of us is it? Topanga says none of us are the killers. There has to be someone else in here, and there has to be another way out. All right, Brian, what do you think of the opening set?
Okay, so I think that one of the reasons why this is such a memorable episode is because, it starts out just as a normal Boy Meets World episode that you would expect, and then it diverges like so far from the normal like formula that we were all accustomed to. And I think that was a little bit of a risk from Jeff Minnell and Jeff McCracken, but I think that that's a risk that definitely paid off. I love the addition of Kenny. The use of his character is so meta and plays so well in this. Richard Lee Jackson, who played Kenny, he's known for being Ryan in Saved by the Bell, the new class, Bring It On Again, and most recently Nashville, but was also in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Okay, so that's my nerd reference of the night. But that was my favorite line of the entire episode, where Corey says, "Give me that pencil, Kenny," and he says, "I don't have one." Like, I don't know that, and when he mocks Feeney and says, "I'm not in my normal seat," like those were my favorite lines. Also love the meta line towards him when the four recurring cast members are like, "Yeah, it's definitely not going to be us that dies." I I also noticed the episode pushed the boundaries of the language, like way more than the normal show. Feeney saying hell here, and I think that was actually edited out of the original airing on Disney, but it was added back once it got on the streaming services. And also the "you bastards" that gets mouthed twice but not actually said. Okay, which honestly brings me to, all right, this is going to be not popular amongst my co-hosts here, but it's going to be my least favorite part of the episode, which is the South Park references. Like, and it's not that I don't like South Park. It's just that to me, it dates the show with a joke that's 20 plus years old. And I mean, I know the show is 20 plus years old, but the show doesn't stand out like that.
That dates the show, not the fact there's a fucking payphone on the wall.
Well, I'm not talking about.
And he tries to get a quarterback from it.
Okay, look, and that's what I'm trying to tell you is that it doesn't date the show as, oh my God, it takes place 20 years ago. It's like, my mind, I can sit there and place everything in this time period and everything's perfectly fine until I get this South Park joke and I'm like, oh, well, that's old ass joke.
Brian, I kind of agree with you. Like, I like those references, but I liken it to, and I love Robin Williams as the genie in Aladdin, but some of the jokes he makes and the characters he voices within that are very dated. And to me, that dates that movie as well in a certain way. So I kind of tend to agree with you and be on the same line there.
Plus, it's jokes that we've heard for 20 years. Like, it's not something that's, oh, okay, it's Boy Meets World, I'm in this universe. It's a joke that we've heard for 20 years. Like, oh, you've killed Kenny, you bastards. Like, okay, great. I don't know. That's why to me, and I'm just being nitpicky, it got annoying. And so that's my biggest nitpick. The last thing I'll say is that old music playing over the school speakers, legitimately to me, the most creepy thing in the episode. I loved it. Loved the choice there. And I would continue, but I think it's against the Geneva Detention Convention. So go ahead there, Mr. Settle.
Great line. Corey, I love it. Oh man, this theme song is like nostalgia juice for my veins. I don't know. It's a little short thing, but I've always loved it. I think and I quote it all the time.
How does it go?
Down this, when it's Boy Meets World. I'm not gonna sing the whole thing for you, Brian.
Come on,
I'm not gonna sing the whole thing, buddy. Come on. I'm trying to travel down this road that we call life and get on with the show. Okay. I like the addition of Kenny as well. I think his character fits perfect here. Again, just naming him Kenny in general is definitely a South Park reference in and of itself, which I think works if you used the joke once. If they had the, oh my God, you killed Kenny, and you took out the hidey ho, and you took out the, oh my God, he killed Feeney, I think it works a little bit better. But that part doesn't bother me, but it does get a little tiresome. Shawn is normally like a tortured soul character. He's one of the hearts of the show. His backstory and how rough he grew up and poor and all that stuff. In this episode, and it's not that he's like that in every single episode, but the consistent through line is that he's kind of like the hunky tortured soul, okay, that wears a leather jacket. In this episode, he's very silly. He kind of like switches roles with Corey almost, who's normally really silly and kind of loony, and Shawn becomes kind of that in this episode. Shawn basically also becomes Randy Meeks in this episode. He's literally Randy from Scream, and I think it works. Feeney cracks me up in this episode, especially in this part where he tells everyone to shut up. That's great. And then a little bit of backstory. Corey didn't technically cheat on Topanga, but that's why they're not together. Another girl kissed him, although I guess he could have stopped her. So, he is.
Hey, I would have kissed her back. She was hot.
That's what I'll let y'all blank on her name, but she's in so many other things.
She played. Didn't she play Velma in?
Yes. Linda Cardellini.
You go. I'll look her up.
Okay.
That's who played Velma in Scooby Doo. If that's who was in that.
That's who that is. That's who that is.
Yeah, Linda Cardellini.
Yep.
She was. She worked at the ski resort. And she may or may not have made a move on Corey, and Topanga got all. Anyway, go ahead. Back to this episode.
Yeah. So it feels like the line, give me that pencil was almost a mistake by Ben Savage that they left in so Kenny could go, I don't have one off the cuff. Like maybe that was wrote in there, but to me it felt really organic. I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Brian. It's really, really good. The janitor being named Freddy is an Easter egg. The producer of the show, Michael Jacobs, even copped to that as a Nightmare on Elm Street reference, even though it was spelled different. Again, Feeney is great here. The whole when you act like 2-year-olds, like when you act like 2-year-olds, like it's just a simple little humor like that I think works really well. Cheese product, because you can't say cheese whiz. That's a great line. Geneva Detention Convention, which tries saying that a bunch of times fast. When you have a stuttering problem like me, it doesn't really work. But I think that joke is really, really funny. It works. The creepy janitor, I think, is played really serious and well. Like I think it works really well as like this standalone horror part of this episode. I want to give props right now to Trina McGee as Angela. She's fantastic as a Scream Queen. Like she should have had a movie out of this episode. I think she could have done a great job in like one of the Scream movies or even in Scary Movie or something like that where she kind of plays the same character in those movies. I think it would have worked.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, friend of the show, Trina McGee. I think no one gets out alive. That being on the chalkboard, classic, iconic. It's what most people take away from this episode. I love it's certainly not going to be any of us, which is a great meta line that you reference. Like, duh, it's not going to be Kenny. You're on screen to die. You're like every other slasher movie that's ever been. I love how they turned the thing that Shawn thought was the heartbeat, and it was just Eric bouncing a basketball. That's fantastic. Eric and Jack are great here. The only nitpick I have is a nitpick with the show. It's like every season Eric got more progressively stupid, and it starts in this season when he goes off to college, and I think he's really dumb in this episode, but it's funny. There's so many, like, that's straight out of this movie. The blood in the showers, that's straight out of this movie. Whatever. Like, I think those lines work really well. By the way, great kill here of Kenny. Like, I know you may not love the line, oh my God, they kill Kenny, but big pencil through the forehead is fantastic. That would work in any slasher if you made it more brutal than they were able to. I think the John Adams High song is fantastic. It's creepy. I would love to see it in a real horror movie. Like, I think it would work so well. Also, to go back real quick, Corey saying, always remember he was this tall. It's a fucking hilarious line. That's awesome. Let's see. Stabbed in the back for Feeney is great writing because they mentioned it earlier about haven't you ever know what it's like to be stabbed in the back by a woman, and Feeney ends up dying with scissors stabbed in the back. So I think that's fun. And one of the other memorable things from this episode is Eric's dun dun duns. I think it adds some really good comedic relief when you get into these more serious scenes. Last of the Obvious Suspects. The Killer Is One of Us. Those movies don't exist, but I think it's hilarious in this world. That's just what the movies are called. So, and also one quick thing, the score here is fantastic. When the killer kind of starts running around and I don't know, that score sounds like it's from somewhere else, but it's really, really well done. So that's all I had. No, it was a lot, but we only have 2 scene by scene. So here we go.
Yeah. Great opening dialogue. It's just so familiar. You get, like I said, you get the dynamic between all these characters, and it's fantastic. You get witty remarks, the banter back and forth with Feeney. It's a perfect opening set of scenes, or opening to the show. Shawn saying ramifications and Feeney responding, big word, Jughead. That's great. That's hilarious. The creepy janitor and Kennedy are both great nods to horror. Unfamiliars, characters being introduced and to cause suspicion and also be a target. Love that. You can't convince me, though, that Corey wouldn't get sent to the principal's office for threatening to stab Kenny. I mean, that's a little... Geez, maybe this is dating it more than anything, a pre-Columbine world, maybe. But this is fucking insane. He just threatened to stab a kid. I think it is a great meta moment when he says... when Kenny is the victim and he says, why me? And Corey says, well, it's certainly not going to be any of us. And they all laugh. Like, that was one of my favorite parts because obviously the 4 recurring characters can't be the first to die. We get a nice nod with the Scream costume. I love that. And, when the lights get turned off. I agree. It was a hilarious kill with the pencil going through his head. And then Corey saying, "We'll always remember he was this tall." Like, that's my favorite line from this episode. That was great. OMG, they killed Kenny. So here's the thing. Like, sometimes when we talk about movies that are supposed to be from a specific time period, we say, man, they really killed this. This really feels like it was, they captured the essence of what it was to live back then. I don't have a problem with the South Park reference because I can remember, let's see, this episode came out, 98? I can remember being 98 and my friends and I quoting South Park left and right. So it's just a very typical thing for school-age kids to do. I don't have a problem with it. It is what it is. I laughed when he's like, they'll creep behind us when none of us will see, and they turn around immediately, try to catch it, and it goes the other way in front of the camera between them and us. That was great. Feeney's death is funny because how he just stood there quietly, stoic look on his face, and he just fell to his knees. Thought that was great. Another great line is when he's like, explaining the rules. He's like, virgins never die. And Corey tells Topanga, thanks for saving me. That was funny. And the last thing I have on this set of scenes is, like you said, Mike, Trina McGee, holy hell, great screams. Like, she deserved her own horror movie out of this. That was fantastic screams. But overall, great set of scenes to get us open. And it just, like I said, I hadn't watched the show in about a year and a half or so, however long it's been. And it just really made me remember how much I love this show.
Also love how Eric and Jack cheer on Feeney after he dies for having sex. That's fantastic.
All right. They leave Eric out in the hallway by himself, and he turns around and another girl is there. He calls her the killer, and she says she isn't, and he starts to make out with her. She says she's a new student here and got locked in study hall. She says her name is Jennifer Love Pfefferman. Shawn says it's always the one you think that can't be the killer. Pfeffy screams when the phone rings, and Angela says she's the screamer. Do you like scary movies? What's your favorite? He says Party of Five. They say they can use the phone to help, but Eric rips the cord out. He now talks to the killer. He says what all killers say. He wants us to stay here so he can come kill us. The group's all in the library, and Topanga tells Angela she doesn't trust Jennifer Love Pfefferman as far as she can throw her. Shawn says this goes against my horror movie instincts, but we should split up. Corey asks Jennifer Love Pfefferman why anyone would do this to us. We're good kids. Why? She says we're all scared, but you know what? We're going to get out of this, as she kisses his cheek and Topanga watches. Books fall from the top shelf, and Eric runs to her. It's too late, but I know who the killer is. I caught a glimpse of the killer. She whispers to him, but more books fall, killing Eric too. The other jock says he can't afford the rent and goes to jump off the window ledge. Angela gets on the ledge with him to talk him out of it until the cloaked figure pushes them both off to their death. The figure walks to Topanga, Shawn, and Corey. He puts Corey and Topanga's hands together, and Shawn pulls his mask off, revealing it to be Shawn. Corey wakes Shawn up, and he says Feeney is looking at you like he's going to kill you. Shawn asks Mr. Feeney if he'll let everyone go. It's my fault. He apologizes. He's been taking their breakup hard and taking out on everybody. He speaks to the class saying they've been together since before I knew you. If you're not, I feel like there's nothing I can depend on. It makes me angry. There's nothing I can do to fix it. Corey says he's not responsible for this. Feeney says something bad happened, but it's not your fault. You're a troubled young man. I recognize you're a troubled young man from the movie. He dismisses everyone and closes the door. The masked figure sneaks out and behind them. End credits roll, and we see Mr. Feeney asking the students questions in rapid-fire format, and they answer military style. The class applauds Mr. Feeney, who wakes up from his dream, to the class throwing paper balls and airplanes at each other. He grips the scissors tightly as the episode ends. All right, Brian, what do you think about the ending?
Yeah, so I liked the first set of scenes, but it was more like Boy Meets World comedy. And when Jennifer Love Hewitt walks in, the episode to me kind of gets substantially better. If you didn't know, like Will Friedle and Jennifer Love were dating, which is why she's on the show here. I guess they met on 1997's Trojan War movie, which sidebar absolutely killed it at the box office. By the way, it had like $300 million on a $15 million budget. But anyway, back to this. And upon further review, I'm not real sure walking up to a girl and starting to make out with her is super acceptable now. But hey, what can you do?
Come out with me some night.
Oh man, I was going to say I missed the '90s, but man, I just need to be Dustin's friend.
No, I'm
Um,
just kidding. Monkeypox going around, man. We can't be doing that.
uh, the last thing I
You
have to
just
say,
dated all episode, bro. Come on.
the last thing I have to say is I also love how the cinematography flips from its usual standard sitcom camera work to that shaky cam in some parts, and the meta Party of Five reference with Nev and Jennifer Love Hewitt. And again, I just think that it does do a nice job of combining horror movie tropes and playing more on that '90s horror movies, and even Scooby Doo. I think a little bit here. Um, you know,
Absolutely.
but it does all that, and then by the end, we still get that heart of Boy Meets World, like I brought up, and it kind of brings it all together. Great episode, and oh yeah, Blood in the Showers, classic movie. I loved it. Just full of it was full of showers and blood. It was absolutely great. Go ahead, man.
I wrote again here in my notes. Eric is so damn dumb. So that's not very nice of me. But I love Jennifer Love Hewitt's cameo here. The name Jennifer Love Pfefferman is awesome. That's really funny. Every time I watch this episode now, when Eric does that, I shout, "That's assault, brother," because that's exactly what that is. Eric on the phone here is fantastic. When he rips it out of the wall and said, "When the killer gets here, we can hit him with this." Great comedy. Love that. I love how you get some under the mask breathing like it's Halloween 1978. I think that was a nice touch. The score within the library, I think, is really good, really creepy. Like Brian said, from this point on, it becomes a little bit more of a horror movie until the very end. Jack going back and forth. Eric, Feffy, didn't really know her. That's really good stuff. I feel you though, Jack. Sometimes I don't want to live when my rent is due either. Totally understand, brother. I'm with you. Shawn being the killer to me was always a little weak, but it does tie back in really nicely as far as giving that heart of a Boy Meets World episode that we look for. And it was a dream, and it was his dream, so that makes sense. I recognize it from that movie, Trouble Young Man. Great line by Feeney. Also love Feeney's dream here at the end. The Sir, Mr. Feeney, Sir stuff. That's fantastic. I'm sure that's every teacher's dream, but that's never going to happen. The final shot when Feeney looks at the scissors with the almost like psycho music, I think it's a great closing shot and a great way to end the episode. You mentioned some of the horror tropes and stuff, but I love how they move the camera in the last like 9-10 minutes of this episode. It's more horror like. You get the Scooby-Doo shot where they're all kind of running around the halls looking for the killer kind of vibe. That's the vibe I got from it as well, Brian. So that's all I had. A lot shorter this time, but I think this is a really nice combination of you get your humor that you normally get from Boy Meets World. You get some really fun horror tropes, which Michael Jacobs and others have worked in the industry, so that makes sense. And you get the heart at the story, which is Shawn not being or trying to learn how to live without especially the Three Musketeers now that Corey and Topanga aren't together.
Yeah, the first thing I put in my notes for this this section of the episode is Jennifer Love Hewitt. Whew, I feel you, Eric. Like I too would have to fight the urge to just walk up to her, start tongue kissing her, but then again, that's how you catch a charge. I love when Feffy screams and then Angela gets offended. She's like, that's my bit. I love that. That was awesome. I like the Scream reference on the phone. What's your favorite scary movie? All that. I did too. I thought it was hilarious when he ripped the phone off. And he's like, "Oh, we could hit him with this." And he continues to talk on the phone. And then, like I said earlier, he when he hangs up the phone, he goes back to it and hits the receiver on it a couple times and checks to see if a quarter fell out, see if he got a refund for that. That's something that no one born post in the 2000s would have a clue what the hell that's about, using a payphone. Which, side note, I randomly found a payphone in Knoxville, Tennessee in an Arby's parking lot recently, and I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know why it's there. Okay, so typical. This almost reminds me of like Cabin in the Woods, right? When they go into the dark library, it's like they're being influenced to do this because why the hell would you go in a dark library when there's a killer on the loose? But then the death by books, I wrote, come on. And so that's when your first time watching this episode, you're like, what the hell? Like books fell on him and it killed him? Actually, that's not how I felt, but I would imagine. I did like the realization, though, that it was a dream. because it's Boy Meets World. Any other outcome just wouldn't fit the show. So like it was a nice way to tie it all in, put a bow on the episode, and still have a message. So a lot of Boy Meets World, a lot of the episodes do have a positive message, and that's what it did. It had the feel good moment with Feeney telling Shawn, not everything's your fault. You can't stop blaming yourself for everything. So that was nice. And then great dream sequence by Feeney as the credits roll, and he yells out Nebraska. Shawn Hunter, Nebraska, and he's like the 75th state, main export tortillas. Like that shit cracked me up. That's how he knew he was awake. But yeah, just overall a really fun episode, and it's probably, I'm not gonna lie, it probably just sparked another rewatch of Boy Meets World for me.
Yeah,
Nice.
attaboy.
All right, let's check out our social media comments and questions real quick. We had quite a few. We'll do Instagram first. Queen is Elizabeth 717 commented, "Oh my gosh, they killed Kenny," with a laughing emoji. It was a great line. Schmoopy Jennifer Kramer, she commented, "I love this so much." And then my friend Jeff DeGamarino, he said, Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Let's jump over to Twitter real quick. Kevin Scanlon commented, "Easily my favorite episode in the entire series. Dun dun dun. I'm done." Sean Irwin said, "Best episode of the show." We got a lot of those comments. Randy Smith commented, "One of the greatest shows." Lucas Barquette, "I will never forget. Here's a knife. Here's a gun. They'll be fun for everyone." Mookie, Boomer _ T1, one of the best episodes. And we got several quote tweets. I think this is the best episode they got. And Patrick Jacob, big friend of the show, who remembers this classic episode? So, Mike, I think this was a great pick. A lot of people like this show and this episode.
Yeah, Nico, before we go into kill and score and all that, I just want to say I'm bringing something out of retirement just for this episode. You get a twofer. Are you ready? Danielle Fishel, Jennifer Love Hewitt. Call me sometime.
Interesting. How are things at home?
Things are great, buddy. Things are
Great for you.
fantastic.
Hey, Trina McGee, call me sometime. Boom.
I was going to say also Trina McGee, but I'll let you have one, buddy. I'll let you have one.
Friend of the
Betsy
show.
Randall,
Friend of the
call
show.
me. Wait a minute.
Huh? Something I said?
No, I said Betsy Randall, call me sometime. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. No.
Do we have any? I don't think we got any fun facts here. Mike, do you got anything? Budget?
No. Outside of Michael Jacobs being a writer producer on the Dream Child, I can't really think of anything. Oh, here's another horror connection. Shawn Hunter, Ryder Strong, is in the original 1999-8 Cabin Fever. Eli Ross, Cabin Fever. So he's one of the main characters in that movie as well. So there's some horror connections here, man.
Okay.
I got one. This is one of only 2 episodes of the show to be rated TV PG instead of TVG. And the other was Brotherly Shove from 2000.
I'm surprised the one where Corey and Topanga get it on finally isn't rated TV PG, but whatever.
And actually, and I don't remember, did one of y'all mention that Jennifer Love Hewitt and Will Friedle were actually dating during this episode?
Yeah, Brian did.
Yeah, okay.
Alrighty, guys. You want to jump into our favorite kill, least favorite kill, and a rating?
Let's do
Who
it.
wants to go first? I mean, I'll just go ahead and go first because I've already told Mike I don't know this show that well, honestly. Obviously, I've heard of it, knew about it, but I don't know like the backstory or anything like that. I thought it was a fun episode, a lot of great horror nods. Definitely feels very 90s, very meta. Jennifer Love Hewitt's in it. It's great. Favorite kill, Kenny with the pencil, just because I thought the scene was funny. Least favorite, I'll go with the janitor, just finding him in the trash can. Rating, I really have no idea how to rate it, honestly. So I'm just going to give it a 7.
Perfect.
I think 7's fair, considering I don't know anything else except the 22 minutes we watched. It was decently funny. A lot of great nods, and I really don't know how else to rate it, so I just gave it a 7.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
I'll go ahead and go let the 2 Boy Meets World fans go last. My favorite kill is Kenny. My least favorite kill is the push out the window where it kind of looked like they were jumped 3 feet down. I was not a fan of that one. And as far as the summary, look, it's toned down, but it's still a meta homage to some of my favorite films. That, and then you couple with the nostalgia of Boy Meets World. Where can you go wrong? In my opinion, only with the South Park references. So I gave it a 9.
Nice.
All right, I'll go ahead and go. As far as my kills, favorite was Kenny, just because, like I said, it was hilarious when Corey said, and we'll always remember he was this tall. Least favorite kill was Feffy and Eric because, come on, man, it's just books falling off a shelf. Come on. But I love the show in general. This episode is fantastic. Probably the best one, if not one of the top 3 for sure. So I gave it a 10. It's perfect.
Yeah, my favorite kill is Kenny. And my least favorite kill was kind of a tie between the janitor and the books falling. That's neither one of those are very inspiring kills. I'll even take the window kill because at least something happens. But yeah, man, you kind of wrapped it up, Dustin. One of my favorite shows, and it involves one of my favorite things, which is horror movies. So you kind of put the two together, and I don't really think you can go wrong. It's super nostalgic. I love this. I love this era of television, and I just love this show. I love its characters. I think it's great. And again, we get back to the heart of the show at the end. So you get a little bit of everything, and it's perfect to me. So to quote Billy Bob from Varsity Blues, I give it a 10, a fucking 10. I just yelled into the mic. Hope everyone turned their volumes down when they hear it at home.
Brian will fix that. That gives us a composite score of a 9. IMDb has it as a 9.4, so leave it to Nico to bring it down a little bit. I'm just kidding, bud.
I can't believe Nico rated a 7. That's against the Geneva Detention Convention. Let's go.
It's pretty good for a meta movie.
It is. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's
God, he's gonna give I know
movies.
He's gonna give I know what you did last summer too a real low rating. I can feel it.
Well, I've heard that movie sucks, but anyway,
I'm gonna give that one a low.
I said, so am I. That movie's terrible.
Mike, you got any final thoughts on your birthday pick? I mean, I'm glad we got to do it for you.
No, man. Thanks for finally, having me the chance to do it. It's my fault that we do mine like 8 months late, and I think next year I'm just going to keep the tradition alive. I'll let you know when I'm ready to do my birthday pick. That's how I feel about it. Also, March is kind of a busy time for a lot of people, so I like to wait until the schedule kind of clears out a little bit. But no, thank you guys for letting me do it, and thanks for giving it such a high rating. I appreciate that. One of my favorite shows, and they put some horror stuff with it, so kind of hard to complain on my end, man. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely, I love doing birthday bonuses for all of us. Just give us a chance to review
next year. Halloween 3. Here we go, baby. Let's go.
Fuck.
Come on, man. All right, I'm going to shout out our blood donors real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Camper Level, Reoccurring, Clayton J, Nina, Michelle Mirza, Andrew Ferguson, Carrie Adams, the Horror Movie Crew Podcast, Alex Seligson, Eric Doolittle, and Shawn Irwin. Our camp counselor reoccurrings are Hunter Nelson, Dennis Kennedy, Edwin Hernandez Gunn, Joe Swinford, Jennifer Davis from the Too Close to Home podcast, Heather Smith, Kylie Denise, all the way from Australia, and Adrian Aiello. Our legendary blood donor we have a film review to do for is Michael Azelson. And our final guide donors we have film reviews to do for are Christian Cunningham and Matt Sears. Really appreciate y'all. Y'all are awesome. And happy belated birthday again, Mike. We really appreciate all the listeners and fans. Y'all have a good one.
Yes, thank you guys.
Just want to remind everybody.